Hello, my name's Philippa Waller.
My name is Penelope Waller, and we are two of the directors at 4D Human Being.
And welcome to the 4D Human Being podcast. What's it all about, Pen?
It's all about your personal and professional relationships. It's about your communication skills, how you lead, how you work and build teams, how you are looking after yourself and your well-being, and how you are much more at choice. What do we mean by that?
Well, sometimes we can get a little caught in patterns in life, and we can all be a little bit on our automatic pilot. So 4D Human Being is all about helping us get back to choice and being a four-dimensional human being. And your fourth dimension, of course,
is intention. So whether it's about your impact, your leadership style, your team dynamics, whether it's about your well-being, whether it's about your communication or your presentation skills, anything that involves human beings interacting with other human beings, 4D Human Being are here to help.
we're going to take a deep dive and look at some tools, insights, theories that are going to help you go from a 3D human doing to a 4D human being, so that you can happen to the world rather than the world simply happening to you.
And we are recording.
We're off, Billy.
I want to say Happy Christmas. Where are we going to be? We're going to be, not quite, but
well,
maybe...
this might be the last one before Christmas.
The last one. The last blank before Christmas. How many of those will we have? The last breakdown before Christmas.
The last shop before
The last
Christmas.
email before Christmas.
Oh!
So it'll be the, where are we, 10th, 11th, 12th? Yeah.
Might be Boxing Day.
No, this podcast will go out on the 12th.
Okay.
So this will be the last podcast before Christmas. If that was a novel or a story...
Yeah, that's a good title.
It's a good title.
Yeah.
The
What happens?
The last anything before
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
That's what we call suspense in storytelling.
Very
okay.
good, very good.
So, yes, if you in fact, little super segue there. You haven't seen the advent calendar. I'm doing bunny ears on the video. It's the count.
Why bunny ears?
Well, because an advent calendar is 24
Yeah, no, fair
doors,
enough,
and we've
yeah.
got a countdown to Christmas, 10 doors. Firstly, because I thought 24 was overwhelming, and who needs us every day in December?
Seriously.
Although some people might say. I thought 10 was enough.
Yes, definitely.
And one of them, which went out, I think, yesterday, is What's Your Story? And I love that
Yes.
one, just bringing it back to story
Is that
title.
the one where I've got the Christmas bow around my neck?
The jaunty bow that I said...
You made me wear
I made you
that.
wear that. It's very
I
Christmassy.
do look a bit like a Christmas present.
And it's very memorable.
Well, in a good way or a bad way, I don't know.
In a way.
In a way.
So...
yes, no, it's true. What's your story?
The Christmas story, which I really love, is actually, and as I was sort of
And
writing...
not as in the Christmas
Well,
story.
exactly, because that's what I like about it, because it's not the Christmas story, although, of
You
course...
love a link.
Although, of course, if we go back far enough, there's other versions of the
Sure.
Christmas story, which we've layered on Christianity, onto paganism, etc. But anyway, let's not go down that route. The Christmas story is the Christmas story.
Yes.
And then you might have a Christmas story, which might be Christmases past and, you know,
Sure.
whatever. But the Christmas story that we're talking about is when someone says to you, how were your holidays?
Yes.
What falls out of your mouth?
Well, my experience is usually the worst bits or usually the last bits.
Well-
Not always the most conscious story.
Oh, I've got to say something on that. Do you remember meeting somebody on a holiday who'd been married for 13 years and was really unhappy in the last few years and was really down on the ex and relationships and marriage?
It wasn't me, was it?
Could be many people. But what was interesting was it was either one of us or someone we were with sort of pulled her up on it, but in an interesting way, and said, how long were you married for? And she said, 12 years. And she said, how much of that was good? And she said, the first 7-8 years were really happy. She said, so I'm just noticing that the story is about the last
Yeah.
4 or 5 years. And I thought it was a really, really good point.
They've done so much psychological
On the
research
surgery,
on that.
yeah.
Well, also they do things like they did all these experiments where you had your hand
Yeah.
in
Yeah, that's right.
buckets of cold water. And if you just made it colder for the last few seconds, the experience was significantly worse.
Yes, and they've done it on surgery, where if you've had you can have a far more painful surgery. Let's
Yes.
say less anaesthetic.
Yes.
But the last
Yeah.
few minutes are less painful. You're going to remember
Yeah.
that as a much better experience than
it's
less
madness.
pain.
It does show how irrational we are.
How the brain
I mean, the moral
works.
is we're going to sort of explode this and expand on it. But the moral is make sure
your last make sure the last thing you do over Christmas is really pleasant.
The thing I would say about this is
it's so
really notice how much your narrative is influenced by the last few minutes, hours, days. I mean, even months of a relationship or an experience, because psychology demonstrates that our narrative is made up of the last.
You see,
experience.
I know how illogical that is.
Yeah.
That if you've and I'm going to give an example of this. The logic, of course, is if you've spent 90 minutes bored out of your brain, but then 2 minutes utterly entertained. I'm thinking about West End musicals here.
Oh, I love the finales.
But it's the finale.
Oh, I love the finales.
If you get the finale right, people will come out toe tapping, singing the number, saying that was amazing.
It's the only reason you can tolerate a pantomime, because you know they're all going to come out in colour coordinated outfits at the end and do a big whoopee doo, and I love it.
What's interesting is,
but the 2 hours previously.
But what's interesting is that in show business, in particular musicals, that is a known thing. Yes. You have to open pretty well, but you have to end well, and that's it.
Yeah. So for anyone hosting Christmas out there, go out on a blinder.
Have a good dessert.
Anyway, point being, 2 things I would say about that. One is, 3 things. One is make it a really good ending. Second one is really notice how much you talk about the end of an experience as if it was the entire experience. And the third thing is can we super segue into?
If you haven't got one, I've definitely got one.
Yours is going to be better than mine.
All right, now come on, super segue me up right nice, pen. Because I am literally having to gag myself.
Well, I
would super segue.
I would say you're going to do better than me. I would say super segue. I would say you are totally making up and creating narrative in your head, whether good or bad, whether that's for most of the experience, 5% of the experience, you are making up that narrative in your head. And that is exactly what you're doing when you think people are judging you.
Yeah, 100%. I think mine was a little bit blunter. was more like when someone says, "How was your holiday?" and your mind wants to go, "Oh God, well, Uncle John was a freaking nightmare." So that's where you want to go straight to judgment. By the way, in case you hadn't realised,
we're talking about
this podcast is absolutely about judgment, and judgment over the festive period is a wonderful time to talk about it, because it's a bit like difficult situations or
also
tragedies.
We're with family.
Our patterns just get dialed up. So we're thrust back into these old systems and dynamics, and all of those irritations, all of the reasons that we judge Uncle John and Auntie Jane, they are right there.
It's also because family members tend to know, whether consciously or unconsciously, they tend to know which buttons to push by saying things that on the surface don't seem very judgy, but like things like
Pokey McPokersons.
So things like you're thinking of serving red wine with the turkey.
Yeah, that's right.
That sort of thing.
That's right. You're like
the actual words.
Yeah.
But underneath it,
you're like, when did you last host Christmas? Yeah. Who's paid for this wine? Yeah, exactly.
And joy and sparkle to all.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Joy and judgment. I mean, there it is. Jolly.
That's the title of the podcast.
Yeah, joy and judgment. I mean, the jolly judgments of the jolly festivities, isn't it? So
we are our own worst enemy for judgment, which is what we're going to say.
Well, the interesting thing, isn't it, is that even as we think about Christmas or holidays, whatever you're celebrating, even before, as we sort of, hurtle, as a lot of us are.
I don't want to hurtle.
But December is like this.
It's a hurtle, Phil.
I want to talk about time in a minute, because I read something about time and stopping time. So interesting.
Yes, I saw that.
It was so interesting.
I know, so interesting.
We're going to come to that. We will come to that. I'm writing it down because we won't forget. But December.
Hurtle. It's a hurtle. Something happens on the 1st of December.
Something happens on the 1st of December.
I think the Earth starts spinning.
Starts spinning more quickly, because It's like we're all put at the top of a mountain at the beginning of December and we're thrown down it and we just gain momentum.
Do you know, that is exactly how it feels. And as we roll down the mountain, we're sort of grabbing gifts.
Grabbing gifts,
like in some sort of frantic thing.
Exactly. Trying to bake a cake and
and by the time you get to the bottom, you know you haven't got much time. You're grabbing anything at that point.
Two things on that. One is I have not found time on my hurtle down the mountain to put my Christmas lights out the front of the house, and I'm the house now on the lane in pitch black, like the bar humbug. I've got to find some time. But the second thing on that is, because as you're hurtling down the mountain at an ever increasing speed, trying desperately to grab gifts en route, you can only imagine how you are not going to be at your best by the time you get to Christmas Day, and therefore judgment gets the chances of judging people is so much higher because our nervous system state
but also we're judging ourselves.
And we're judging ourselves because we haven't done enough, because we've been hurtling down them. I mean, even as I'm talking about it, I can feel the pace of my voice.
I will say one thing just as a sidebar on this, which is that it is questionable whether it's good or bad to be the receiver of a gift that's grabbed at the very last minute down that mountain, because there's two things that can happen, or three things. One is you don't get a gift because there's no time. The second one is you get a really rubbish gift, or the third one is you've just thrown good money after bad to buy anything.
It can end really well, can't it? Because you're just like, I've got no time for thought, it's got to be cash. Exactly, that's the only option here. Okay, let's talk about judgment pen. Actually, before we do that, should we just do a very quick piece on time? Because I don't want to forget. I just loved it. It was
about presents, wasn't it?
Yeah, Christmas presents. But literally being present. But it was a professor, wasn't it, who talked to his students about time and how they could feel like actually time was going less quickly. And they were sceptical.
Sure.
He gave them a sort of build of tasks to do. And the first one was to take 5 seconds, as far as I remember, before they started their day, just to stop. And then at the end of the day. So if you notice and mark the beginning and end of the day. And then I think there were other rituals like doing something slightly different. Yes. So doing thing that's out of your routine. So the upshot of it is, which makes total sense, is that our brain, I just think this is so fascinating. It really made me think. Our brain compresses time when we create familiar routines, which makes total sense that in Daniel Kahneman's work, we're in system 1 so much. We're just in autopilot that it doesn't need to really think, and time just gets compressed and it's rolling down that hill. When we start breaking the routine, in 4D language, we're firing up the intentional self. In Daniel Kahneman's language, you're firing up your system 2.
The brain literally slows down.
You literally experience time differently. And these students who took on these tasks, at the end of whatever it was, a month, they had to report whether they felt like they had more time. And they did.
Yeah. I know, it's amazing, isn't it?
So we're all going to live longer, which is sort of weird. So there you go. So there's our Christmas gift to you. Literally the gift of time.
Yep.
Isn't that amazing? Okay. Judgment.
So not that it's only relevant at
we
Christmas,
all do it,
obviously.
Can we all own it?
Yeah. We can all own it. So, and actually there's a really good reason for judgment. And one of the reasons we wanted to talk about this is it's come up. It's so funny, isn't it, how things come up quite sort of consistently and regularly across clients. And it's a topic that's come up again.
Yeah, we've been talking about this a lot
recently, where I've spoken to some clients about things that they find really challenging, and judgment is really high up there on the list.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess the first thing to say about it is a really, really normal thing that human beings do. I mean, it's kind of linked to how our brains make assumptions. Because going back to the Daniel Kahneman work, system 1, system 2, the system 1 is the sort of lazy part of the brain that's on autopilot. It's very sort of quickly trying to read small bits of data that are out there and analyse it based on existing beliefs and understanding, and then making quick decisions about it. So you can understand on that basis
that if Auntie Jane was annoying last year, she's going to be annoying this year.
and how judgment has been really useful to us historically, if you go way back.
Because it's quick.
It's very quick.
Yeah.
It's quite negatively biased.
Yeah.
Because that's quite useful.
Yeah.
If you've got a new person entering
and
into
they're
the
dangerous,
tribe,
or
you're going to make some judgments.
Do I
about it.
trust them?
So it is there for a very good
Yeah.
reason. And if you think about how it's designed to work and what it's designed to do, which, you know, lots of these things are around our sort of survival mechanism and keeping the tribe safe and all those kind of things, you can see how in the workplace in the modern day and in family life, it might not always be the most useful thing.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it?
But it's there for a good reason,
It's there,
I guess.
exactly. What I think one of the things that's come up for me with clients a lot is how the fear of judgment spirals the overworking and the patterns of having to achieve or to please or to do more and to go into overwhelm and burnout.
Yeah.
As if, and this is what I love about that part of ourselves, that ego, a version of the ego that believes if it is good enough, strong enough, clever enough, works hard enough, nobody will say anything negative about me. But if we can control
that's
that.
exactly right. If I do this, I will change their thinking.
Exactly.
Which you know, you can understand why rationally it feels like that is partially true.
But that nobody will judge me negatively because I'm working so hard. But of course, it's a trap because we cannot stop. Some people, I remember somebody saying to me when I was much younger, it was such a moment of revelation, and who knows whether this is common to a lot of people, but sort of growing up, I guess, wanting to be liked, you know, and that's very primal, belonging, and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But this, as a person said to me, you know, well, obviously not everyone can like you,
and you're like, what?
And I went, what? It was like being told Father Christmas doing this. Sorry for the younger listeners out there, but it was also this sudden freedom of there's no point pedaling on that bike because that destination is a fantasy, it's an oasis in the distance. So first things on judgment, completely normal, and also completely normal to do it and completely normal to try to avoid it because it's the primal instinct around wanting to belong, wanting to be accepted and not wanting to be thrown out of the tribe. But we go to this polarized version where judgment is bad and nobody must ever judge me.
And also we go into the justifying, don't we? So if we feel like we've been judged, going back to what you said earlier, we'll pedal really hard to either change our behaviour so that they change their mind, or to justify
or make
our
them wrong.
choices, or to make them wrong. And to what end, really?
That's what I find so interesting about it. When you go one layer below those patterns of don't want to be judged, work hard, I've been judged, I need to defend myself, they're wrong, I'm right. When you go below that, which we'll talk about more of how you can get there, to what end? So that everybody in the world only ever talks because if you follow it through, it is a fantasy. So let's go through our kind of 4 pieces around judgment, and then I want to talk about a few other pieces.
Let me start with the first one, which I don't know if I can say it's my favourite because I like all of these so much. But I think the number one thing is that, and again, this is sort of backed up by research, is that we really, really overinflate our belief about how much time other people spend thinking about us. I mean, to such a huge... Because we're in our own heads, we think they must be thinking about me, because obviously I literally am the centre of my universe. I have no other point of reference. So if I've seen somebody looking at me in a funny way, well, they must be thinking about me. And of course, what we fail to realise is we fail to correlate how much time we spend thinking about each and every other person in our lives. We fail to sort of analyse that and think, well, that's probably about the same amount of time that other people think about me. We really overinflate how much people are thinking about us. And I guess it's kind of a protection mechanism, because we do that so that we sort of we try and behave well so that they're not doing it. But it is also a slight overinflation of our ego to think that other people are thinking about us. I mean, they're just not. They're thinking about themselves. They're thinking about their shopping list. They're thinking about the plumber coming.
Just not thinking about us. It's making me think of the Oscar Wilde quote, which is sort of related to this, but slightly different. But, better to be spoken about, badly than not spoken about at all. Anyway, but there is something, isn't there, about being relevant,
totally
being relevant in other people's eyes, like not being invisible.
They must be thinking about me.
Well,
sure,
I must be central. to their lives. Yeah. So that's the first thing. So you could dial down how much you think people are judging, because even if they have thought, oh, I didn't like what Bob did then, it is a fleeting thought. I mean, if they really are caught in rumination over you, then that brings us to one of our other points, which will be that says more about them than you.
Totally. This story might be a sort of segue on that, which is my dog was just with a dog sitter for 2 days because I was in Italy, and he's a bit unpredictable bear, I think one would say, in terms of his house guest training.
Yes.
And he did.
Let's put it like this: if he wasn't a human Christmas guest, you would be perfectly within your rights to judge him and to not have him back the following year, and to make sure you have plenty of cleaning products.
Certainly not let him upstairs, Phil.
You wouldn't let exactly. No. If that was Uncle Bob, he would not be going upstairs into the carpeted section.
Certainly not. So he made a mess upstairs in the lovely dog sitter's house. He's also a friend of mine, and of course I am mortified, Phil. Yeah. Utterly mortified, yes. And of course I am thinking about this a lot, and thinking, oh my God, she must just think I'm the worst person, and I'm the worst dog. And of course, I know her. She's lovely. She was probably slightly annoyed that she had to clean it up. She probably hasn't given it another thought. I will think about this for the next few days.
Yeah.
And that is more about how I feel than how she will be thinking.
Yes.
But so often we shift those thoughts about ourselves as if they're happening in someone else's brain. It's madness.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. And, there is a little bit of use to that self-judgment, which is...
Train your dog.
But if we're caught in it, it's saying...
He looks so angelic.
I know, Pen. Oh, looks can be deceiving.
She said he just looks so angelic. Oh, he can sleep upstairs.
Yeah. Well, that's how he got up there.
A quick word from us at 4D Human Being. If you're enjoying the show, please do click follow so that you can have the 4D Human Being podcast instantly in your feed. And we'd love it if you liked and reviewed us. Let us know what you think. Please do think of 1 or 2 people that you could share the 4D Human Being podcast with. Somebody who would really benefit from the content you're listening to right now. Back to the show.
So people are doing it much, much less than you think.
Yeah.
I'm going to come to that other point later on. The amount of narrative that we create, really, we've linked that into number 1, that if you can create that much negative judgment, either about someone else or that you think they're judging you, if you can create that much narrative in your own head about what they might be saying about you that's negative, here's a challenge. Why don't you match that amount of narrative with things they could be saying about you that are really positive? Because if your brain can go to, they must be saying these terrible things about me, your brain must be able to go to, they could be saying these really good things about me. And I had this conversation with somebody very recently about, there was a video months ago I saw online, which was a psychologist showing how our thoughts are formed in a piece of wood, and that over time, you carve out the neural pathways basically, and then you've got this groove in the wood, and it's
thoughts just go there.
It's completely natural, and this is the conversation I was having with someone. Okay, but that feels right. That feels natural. And I was like, of course it does, because the idea that they might be saying, oh, Penelope's very,
kind and lovely,
or not.
I had to fill those words in.
Well, I was thinking about the dog, and I couldn't find anything. I couldn't find anything on dog. Poor very well. Yeah, same thing, because your brain can't go there because there's no
groove to go in.
There's no groove to go in.
That's interesting.
So of course,
create the groove.
So you create your own groove. So of course, literally create your own groove. That it feels like, well, but they wouldn't be saying that.
Yeah,
I can't imagine that they would be saying that. I can only think that they'd be saying, of course you can, because that's the system one that's been grooved. Yeah. So you have to play. You have to imagine. Well, they might have thought, or pen train your dog. They could also be thinking, I love spending time with her. She's always got such great energy. She comes in, and I love it when she comes into my kitchen. So if you can think one thing,
totally,
you can definitely think the other.
I would say something else on that. If you sort of backtrack to the first thing that you said, which is, if you really think about it, it is totally, totally mad how much time we spend and how normalised it is that in our heads we are creating a narrative about what is happening in somebody else's head. It's insane.
Well, so this, when we first set up 4D, we used to talk about this, that you think a relationship has just got like a dynamic of me and you, but it hasn't. No. It's got what I think of you, what you think of me, what I think of me, what you think of you, what I think you think of me,
that's right.
and what you think I think of you, and what I think you think I think of you.
It's mental.
I mean, there's so many dynamics
and that's all going on.
That's all going on.
And we don't even question it.
No.
We think it's completely normal.
Yeah. So
we don't even think about it.
Well, this is the part which I'll come to at the end about being awake, because these processes have been bedded in for a long time, and it's not that they will instantly stop happening. What we can do is build up our intentional self to notice,
that's going on.
I'm noticing, I can hear myself believing and thinking that person is judging me negatively. That's the voice you want to raise. I think what a lot of people get caught on with self-development is the idea that I should be able to just stop that.
Yeah.
That needs fixing.
Yeah.
It's a problem that it needs to go away.
Yeah.
That part of me needs to go away. Actually, the route through is, hello, you're
there.
There you are.
Yeah.
That's when, it's like with shame. Shame doesn't like the light. We want, often people want to get rid of that part. They hate their shameful part. Actually, what shame loves it when you hate it, because it's got, I can feed off of your hate of it and the conflict, the internal conflict. What it doesn't like is just the light. There you are, feeling really shameful. I see you.
Yeah.
I'm here. It's okay. I really see you. Doesn't know what to do with that. And it's the same with judgment. There's me thinking they think I'm a terrible person. There it is.
And it goes back also to what you said about time, which is how much time we lose and how much time escapes us with all of this thinking what they think of me and what they think I think of them. And I mean, it's madness.
It's exhausting,
isn't
it? Think of how many novels you could write if you
totally mad.
Thinking that.
But also, again, to what you said, is that we don't even question that, because that is just how our brains have developed and how they work. But then if you say to somebody, why don't you spend 10 minutes every day thinking about some amazing things that might be going on in Uncle Bob's head about you, you'd go, that's an odd thing to do.
Yeah.
And yet...
Yeah, and it's completely, exactly. The water in your goldfish bowl that you can't even see. Okay, number 3 on the list. Your reaction to either somebody judging you or the idea that somebody is judging you is yours.
Yes.
It's your ego, it's yours. And what I love about this one is, if somebody's judged us, or even if we think somebody might be judging us...
Which is more often the case.
It's all their fault.
Yes.
It's all about them. When we're free from that, when we can move from the idea of judgment or actual judgment to, no, the real issue here is my feeling about judgment or potentially being judged. So if we can take charge of that, and we would talk about getting curious. One of the things that is a huge piece of work within psychotherapy, of course, is if you can become okay with the idea that you might be a bit interrupty or a bit too loud or a bit annoying or a bit thoughtless, if you can go, that's part of me. We call it, it's the shadow work. If you can say, that's true. You're free. Yeah. Now you can say, that isn't Bob being a complete a-hole saying that I can be a bit thoughtless. Because actually, there is a partial truth to that. I can be, sometimes I can be, but and other times I am thought personified. Yes. I am so caring and thoughtful. Both are true. And when you can embrace that...
Well, also, I think when you can embrace that, you probably spend less time in that groove of thinking that everybody is judging you, because a lot of it is a reflection back to how you judge yourself.
I think you just, exactly. I think you just care less. That, if somebody were to say, Philippa can get very caught in, when she's in her creative mode, like it's going fast. Yeah. And if somebody said that, and I was to go, wow, how judgmental.
Well, no one else is putting any comments in here.
Actually, I'd go, that's
fair.
That's absolutely fair. That is true.
Exactly.
And other times, I'm absolutely like, over to you. Well, show me what you've got. It's all true.
I mean, this is also linked to a topic which I definitely think we should do a podcast episode on, which is liking and disliking, and how we think if we don't like somebody, we think it's because there's something wrong with their personality or their behaviour. And so often it's because of this sort of reflection
100%.
of, well, we think they judge or don't like something about us that actually we don't really like about ourselves, but it's not me. It must be them, and they're awful. And I mean, it's so bad.
I think that's one of the. In fact, we're going to number 4 is, of course, you judge other people.
Yeah.
So we've got number 1. People are doing it less than you think. Number 2, if you can create that much negative narrative, have a play and see if you can flip it, create more positive narrative. Number 3 is
it's often your ego.
It's your reaction that's giving you pain, not the actual thing. And so the 4th one is that you judge other people. Now, before we get to what can you do about that, because that is something we can control. That's the bit you can actually control. But exactly as you were saying earlier, it's absolutely, I think, one of the most interesting things to start noticing what you judge. Not necessarily who you judge, maybe, but more what you judge. Because people who are, over hardworking and, super driven and fast paced, I don't necessarily judge that. We tend to judge things that we don't tolerate in ourselves. Yeah. So if you find yourself...
Or that we're ashamed of.
We're ashamed of. So if you find yourself... I mean, I had an absolute classic of this the other day where somebody said to me, oh, so-and-so, she's so mean and she's such a mean person. I was like, we're in a paradox here, aren't we? Because you sound a bit mean. You sound a bit mean about her, but you don't like her meanness. And of course, it's still like that.
There it is.
That's the thing that we do. So, if you really judge somebody who looks a bit what you would call lazy. Yeah. Just finished work at 5 o'clock. Yeah. Just logged off. He's gone home, left me to it. Yeah. That also suggests that you cannot tolerate that level of boundary in yourself because it doesn't feel okay. And so you can't tolerate it in somebody else. Yeah. Whereas they're fine. They're going home having a nice meal at 7 o'clock and you're still at the office.
And it can also be, it can be something that you yourself are frightened of being judged about. Yeah. That you judge in other people. Right. So similar to what you're saying, you hold your standard so high to try and avoid being judged about it.
Yeah, but it's fear-based.
It's fear-based and you're judging it in other people, but it's really more to do with your own fears about parts of yourself that you either don't like or haven't integrated or that you think other people are judging about you. And it's so often that projection that we see in judgment.
So often. And it's also around expectations, isn't it? And this sort of leads me on to the last sort of bit to talk about here is that lovely quote that is from Buddhism, but Poldy books that we love, Auntie Poldy books, that happiness is reality minus expectation. Yeah. And I was reading this piece, again, it was online, around the philosopher, the existentialist Camus, who was really talking about how that we so strive for certainty and we want the universe to conform to how we think it should be.
Quite right too.
And therefore people. So of course we judge when people don't show up in the way that we expect them to. And you say, actually, when we can let go, what he was saying was actually, that's a very unconscious way to live. When you live in a very conscious way, you accept that the world is uncertain, you accept that there are contradictions and it's chaotic, and that the universe will not conform to what you think it should be. And that you need to stop negotiating. I love this. You need to stop negotiating with the universe and start engaging with it. And I just think that is one of the most wonderful phrases.
So true.
To stop negotiating about who should be what. And just be... engage with what it is, which is my TED talk.
Yes.
Be with what is as opposed to what you think it should be.
Well, when you put it like that, when you express it in those words, negotiating with the universe, you realise what utter madness that is. Madness. The other thing I'd say about judgment as well, which I can really understand this evolutionarily, is that judgment also serves to other yourself from people. Yeah. So you can think about this in terms of, villages or tribes and sort of judging somebody and then people get ostracised. One example of this that really struck me, I had to do a speed awareness course many years ago online, and I wasn't speeding very much, but nevertheless.
Sure, but let's make sure we level where it was the tiniest. It was like half a mile an hour.
I was very unlucky. When we were on, there you go. When we were on the course, they were talking, and it was very good, because it really made you think. They were talking about people who had been speeding, let's say in a 30-mile-an-hour limit, whatever, and unfortunately had an accident. Which if you're speeding and you get caught, okay, you get a fine or you do a speed awareness course. But if you're speeding and you have an accident and you hurt somebody, I mean, boy, you are in trouble.
Yeah.
And they were talking about people who, a nurse or an admin assistant in a school, and their lives had been completely. And what I really thought about as I was listening to them was, of course, when you see that headline in the paper, it's very easy to judge people, to think, they deserve it or they shouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is because we have to remove ourselves from it, because it can't be us.
Yeah.
And yet it so could be us.
And actually, this really talks to some wonderful work that we're doing at the moment on polarization and working with polarities, that it's much easier to create a line where we put people over that line and us on the other side. So that person is incompetent. I'm over here in the competent gang.
And I sort of have to judge them to create that line.
That's right. And that's exactly what the judgment is doing. It's saying, I put you over there and I judge you for being over there, and I'm not over there. And actually, again, going back to Camus, it's actually, we're much better off in the soup of life, that actually we're all either in that or potentially in that. We can all potentially be lazy or potentially speed or whatever it is. And that we're much better off being able to hold these two truths and allow for these contradictions and for these possibilities. And that's a much more awake way to live. And he would say, actually, that you think that life needs to be straightforward, and that's why we draw these lines of you're over there, I'm over here. I would never do that. If you hear yourself saying that, I would never. If they did that, I would never. You're in that judgment. That actually you cannot have that certainty of that delineation. Really, the way to live is through awareness, courage, and attention. To be with what is, to be courageous and compassion as well. I would add compassion in there.
Well, it really makes me think of that incredible story that we heard recently. I think it was on a podcast about sort of forgiveness in the prison system, and it's where the victims or the families of victims can come together with the perpetrator of the crime, and there can be sort of forgiveness and that kind of thing. And when I hear stories like that, it really overwhelms me with emotion and in a good way, like just how amazing people are. And of course, I realise that when you're in that compassion and forgiveness space, you are sort of overwhelmed with love for the human race, love for how we can be. And of course, when you're in that judgment space, you're coming from fear.
100%.
And it doesn't make you feel that sort of overwhelming feeling of sort of joy and love for the human race. It makes you feel othered from people. And I can understand both, because of course the fear is, like we said, it's very useful in terms of self-protection, protection of the tribe and all those kind of things. But you can feel in your body how different it feels living from those two places.
Well, do you know what I love about that, Pen, is if we go right back to where we started, which was how were your holidays and what will you say? That if you've been sitting at the dinner table with a smile plastered on your face, judging everybody around it, your own experience won't have been joyful.
No, it won't be filled with love and
it
joy.
won't be filled with love. It will be filled with irritation and judgment and wish that it was other than it was. So it's so directly impacting our own experience, and yet we somehow think that judgment is a release or an avoidance of what we don't like. But it's actually, it's like you say, it's like holding on to anger. It's us that's feeling that. I mean, probably the person who's, complaining about the wine or whatever, they're not feeling the irritation.
No.
It's actually we're left with it. Okay, so I want to say one more thing about judgment. So two more things. One is what you cannot tolerate in yourself is what you will judge in others. So that comes back to
there's the work.
Embrace the shadow. And this other one, which I just love, I come back to it all the time, that what anyone else is thinking about you is none of your business.
I love that so much.
I love that so much. That's in their mind, that's their thoughts, and they could be thinking absolutely anything. And you know what? It is none of your business.
I love that.
Crack on. Assume positive intent.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I'm gonna reference Downton.
Oh.
She at one point, so it's always Maggie Smith, of course. At one point, the Penelope Wilton character, she says something, and Maggie Smith says, I take that, and it's an insult. And Maggie Smith says, I take that as a compliment. And Penelope Wilton's character says, "Well, I must have said it wrong," and she says, "I take everything as a compliment. It really does make life so much easier." And I thought, yeah, even if someone says you're a bit lazy, thank you.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
I take that as a real compliment.
That is the word. That is the spirit of Christmas. When you feel like you're being judged or judging others. Yeah.
So thank you. Yeah, thank you. I know I can be a bit irritating. Yeah, I've sort of honed it.
Yeah, thank you for asking about the wine. I knew you'd love this.
Yeah, exactly. So, a very jolly, joyful Christmas.
Yes.
Watch out for the judgment.
Yeah.
Really, not because we're trying to all be saints.
No.
Sainthood is hard, but more because it will give you a better experience.
100%.
Yeah.
Happy Christmas.
Happy holidays.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the 4D Human Being podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show.
Do take on board some of the insights, tools and tips, because every time that you try something new to get back to choice, you are making a vote for the you that you want to become. And I love that phrase, Pen.
I do too. And please do share this episode with somebody that you know would really benefit from the lessons and learnings we've been chatting about today.
And of course, if you're interested in more from 4D Human Being, do get in touch. We run workshops, trainings, online, in person, conference events and keynotes. We've got the 4D On Demand platform for your whole organisation. And we do have a free Essentials membership where anybody can sign up for absolutely free to access some of our insights, tools and tips. So do get in touch with us if you'd like to hear more. We cannot wait to hear from you and to carry on the conversation.